Right. Welcome,
Tonight,
everybody.
we got Brandon Alvis in the house.
We do.
What's up, guys?
So,
We have a
wait
double header this week.
Yeah. Been a busy week.
Yeah. This will be our second podcast in 2 days. So,
Yep.
yesterday, Brandon, we did a whole thing about my experience with Bigfoot.
Oh, very cool.
And I kind of tied it into, I believe it was a paranormal experience and not Bigfoot. But I mean, it was just as real as you are, you and I are.
Definitely a fascinating story.
Yeah. We had some people think maybe shapeshifter, things like that.
Right.
I've got to have my evidence and just my own eyes was seeing what I saw. It's a whole thing. Like, if you want to go back and watch it, it'd be really awesome.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah. Ricky, how you been today?
Busy. Finally
Same
home
here.
from the hospital, so we're good. Hey, got a couple shout outs to give. Glenn, Tom, they're in the building.
Right. Well, tonight is the night. This is our third episode with Brandon Alvis. We're here to ask him some questions. He's kind of got the open floor. He can stop us at any time. But you're an interesting fellow, unlike me and Ricky.
Hey, I think you guys are pretty interesting, man.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
So I know, Ricky, you said you've had a pretty busy day. Today, it says you said that you went to the Otis College of Art and Design today. How was that?
Yeah. Did a lecture with the Otis College of Art and Design. Sorry, I've been talking all day. So, but yeah, no, I did that via Zoom today with them. It's the fifth year I've held a lecture with them. Fantastic people. The professor there is great. And it's always awesome to see, students that are really into the paranormal and really want to dive deeper into it. So anytime you can get academia involved is always a plus and a big win for our field. And if we can get more of that, that would be very beneficial. So anytime I'm asked to do something like that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. And I just kind of, like I said, that's just something you posted today on social media, and you actually took the words out of my mouth. You said it's a cool experience to see how interested students are about ghosts and hauntings. Ricky, you got any question for him? Or?
No, I think it's awesome. It's good to see that there's the interest. It's coming, it's stronger, and they're actually bringing it into schools and stuff, because if you look back 10, 15 years, that was considered taboo. Scientists didn't want anything to do with it. Now we got, people like you, Brandon, and like me and Tim that are always focused, on bringing, it to the table.
And that kind of brings me up to something, too, I wanted to ask you, Brandon. I found a quote about you saying that cold, hard facts to prove or disprove makes APRA what it is today. So that's the American Paranormal Research Association that you founded, correct?
Correct.
So that kind of, when you're talking about going to these colleges and talking in front of people, and I know you haven't just gone to that college. Trust me, you got a pretty impressive resume. So how does that make you feel? I guess you have a passion for history. So you kind of tying those in together there? Or,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that history goes hand in hand with paranormal research, and I've been very lucky to work with various museums and historical societies throughout the country where I've helped them implement programs that are centered around the paranormal. You have a lot of times where museums, historical buildings, things of that nature don't have people frequenting those places until there's something about the paranormal brought up, right? And the way I always talk to the managers and the presidents of the historical societies, that the people that are coming there for the paranormal angle are going to learn all about the history through this avenue. Typically, they probably wouldn't go and take a historical tour, but because they're there for the paranormal, they're going to get a historical tour, because you have to know the past and understand who came before us and what type of history took place in these buildings before you get to the paranormal side of things. So it's always a win-win for those types of places. And for me, I'm a huge history buff, done many documentary films on historical events as well as the paranormal, but they go hand in hand, and you have to have your feet grounded in the historical research prior to doing an investigation properly.
Absolutely. Just last night, Ricky and I were talking about my experience with Bigfoot. The place that we went was actually one of those, quote, famous haunted places in a small town, and it had a history. So we had to describe the history to it of the small town itself, and then the actual place that we were at. I think it's really interesting for people. That's the best way to cultivate somebody with a story about the paranormal, is to bring in the history of that place.
Right.
I don't know how you guys feel, but when I'm in let's say I'd go to Washington, D.C., and I'm standing there, I can almost feel the history there. It's almost like it's speaking to you, and there's an actual feeling that you get, almost like a sixth sense. Brandon, do you ever get that in your areas that you go to? I know you've been to a ton of places.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my good friend Craig Owens, the author of Haunted by History, says it best. It's investigating the paranormal is almost like time traveling, right?
Yeah.
Where you get to be part of this history that you would not have been a part of otherwise. So it's always really beautiful to be in a situation where you can feel that history, possibly interact with that history. And many times you go to these places, like, for instance, the Glen House in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, all of the belongings from the family are still in that house. I mean, and to be a part of that and be around that just speaks volumes. And you can really feel that overwhelming sense of that history in those places. Maybe it's paranormal related as well. That's possible. But at the same time, you're part of that history.
Yeah. Well, the number one reason why you're here today is for us to discuss one thing, and that is, Ricky, if you want to put it on the screen.
Yeah, definitely, right here, y'all. And make sure y'all get on this, because
your answer there kind of led me into what I was fixing to say. You're an awesome dude. So this is Elements of a Haunting. I've looked into this book. Everything with you and Mustafa.
Sorry,
that
guys,
you guys
1 second. Hey, be right down. 1 second. I'm so sorry, guys. 1 second.
No, you're good.
Sorry, I know this is live, but
hey,
hey,
you're good. You're good.
It's fine.
Take care of what you got to do. You're good.
Love you.
Yeah. Taking the time to be with us. So.
Yeah, man. So he's back.
Sorry, guys. That was the Amazon guy banging at my door.
Hey, speaking
got new
of
camera gear showing up. That's very
where
important.
you
I
can
love
get the
you
book,
guys.
y'all.
Hey.
Get on it.
Absolutely. So back to the book and what you were saying there. Everything that I can kind of gather on the internet that's been written that you guys have released is more about the, quote, 6 most compelling and terrifying investigations that you guys have been through.
Right.
You go into more detail there, but I'd rather you maybe talk about it and tell us, what we look forward to reading that book. My wife's a huge reader, and she loves history, so she's going to be the first one to get your book, probably.
Y'all are making me a reader again. I've never been so excited for a book. So
Hey, I love to hear that, man.
Yeah.
With Ghost Hunters and doing the show, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make it to air. A lot of stuff. I mean,
Agreed.
People don't understand that we're there for a week at a time, sometimes 2 weeks. There's a lot that goes on that does not make the show. And what we've done with this book is we've kind of talked about some of that behind the scenes, stuff that happens. But the big point of the book is trying to step out of the shadow of pseudoscience and really take this to a more credible place when it comes to scientific, thinking and scientific principle. And what we've done is taken 6 of those cases from the show and show our methodology, our standards, our protocol, all that type of stuff. But to go even further, we're implementing a classification system for ghosts and hauntings, which is something that's never really been done before. And it's something that we're very excited about. And I've been lucky to work with Dr. Harry Clore. He's the first person in history to receive 2 PhDs simultaneously. And when working with him for the past decade, I asked him what would make us more credible as a field beyond the scientific principle and implementing that thinking. He said that we would have to start a classification system, right? So we don't go to a zoo and say we saw a bunch of animals, right? We see tigers and monkeys, lions, elephants, those things. With the paranormal, we're really been stuck in a place where is it residual or is it intelligent? We have to go a step further with not only the data collection and empirical evidence, but the history associated with that. What happened historically in these exact locations? What does the data support, and what is that terminology? And that's something that we heavily implement in this book.
That's something really huge to look forward to, especially for, I call myself a history geek. And I guess that kind of gives me the name Elements of a Haunting when you said that you were looking for like a classification system. Ricky, that's kind of what we were talking about last night when it came to Bigfoot. Was he a shapeshifter? Is he an interdimensional being or an astral projection being? Yeah, extraterrestrial. Like we were saying, I think a lot of people hear paranormal and they automatically think ghost,
right,
and not, extraterrestrials or something in the woods. I'm using my own background here, but
Hey, but I like it.
but that's what I was telling him last night. I think we do get lost, and we get lost in a lot of chatter about, oh man, it's a demon or it's an angel. I think demon is a very loosely used
that's
word.
what I call it. It's thrown around so hastily nowadays.
Yeah. So a classification system, man, especially with you and the American Paranormal Research Association, that would be a huge thing, not only for the field, but to make the paranormal a more serious thing, like history. History is just as serious as science is. Why is paranormal not? I mean, some people look at paranormal like pseudoscience.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think it's that way at all.
Right.
Of course, on A&E's Ghost Hunters page, it actually labels you as a natural skeptic. I don't know if you knew that or not. I'm kind of that way to myself, and I think that's very interesting because you were talking about, even before the show, you have a buddy that works at UGA. It looks like you're surrounding yourself with a lot of intelligent people. I've watched a ton of these shows, but I'm just a fan, so I can't really speak on what happens behind the scenes. I know there's probably hours and hours and hours of things that we don't see, but how do you feel when it comes to engineers actually going, like one day maybe an engineer going to school for paranormal research only? Do you think that's something that needs to be happening?
It could happen. I would love to see that. I mean, even doing the lecture today at the Otis College of Art and Design, I mean, you see, kids that are going through, the college process that are very interested in this subject. So, I mean, the way I always put it is that we've explored space to an extent. We've explored the ocean to an extent. I think that last final frontier is going to be life after death. And I really think that you see institutions like the X Prize Foundation, who have had private sectors of, the country challenging themselves to go land a lunar module on the moon. You have space tourism, things like that. I would not be surprised to one day to see something like the X Prize Foundation, a scientific group and a study, challenge the possibility of life after death. I think that you can see that in the next 100 years for sure. And I hope I could be part of that in some way. And I hope that the research I'm conducting and the people I'm working with can, aid in that line of thinking. And that's something I'm very excited about. You see a lot of the shows you guys are talking about, throwing the terminology of demon around, angels, all this stuff. It's very unfortunate to see a majority of the way investigators conduct themselves is by mimicking what they're seeing on pop culture and television. And it's dangerous for the field, for all of us. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist. There's nothing wrong with being a weekend warrior, an investigator. There's no technical right or wrong way to do this. But if we ever want to be taken seriously by the public or scientific community, we have to follow a strict set of protocol, methodology, and guidelines that will help us step out of that shadow of pseudoscience. And I hope that, the research I'm doing will aid with that one day.
That's the thing a lot of people don't see. They don't realize entertainment is what it is. It's entertainment. There's going to be a lot of stuff, like you said, that doesn't make the show, that, they're not seeing the full thing. That's why I'm excited about this book, because, I mean, you guys are going to break down things as it happened. And, that's huge.
Absolutely. And also, just like it's important to explain the historical background of a location, I think it's just important to explain the historical background of a person. Yes. Brandon, I'm seeing that your first directing project was a project called, forgive me if I murder this, Ephemera. And it won, and it won 4 awards back in 2017. How did that impact your life personally and business?
I was always very interested in history, and I would always read books about it. I would watch, History Channel documentaries, National Geographic, things like that. And I always thought that there was the strange side of the history that was always lacking with those type of projects. You would hear about presidencies, and you would hear about the way the country's been ran for so many years. You hear about Mount Everest, K2, all these kind of things like that. But I'm like, what about those lesser known stories that just make people scratch their head and go, what the fuck is that? So I was like, man, I want to see that content. I want to consume that content. I guess I'm just gonna have to make it myself. So I just went into heavy research about these certain topics and went out and started shooting documentaries about them and releasing that. And I didn't make those films to make a name for myself per se, or to further my career. It was more about, because I wanted to see those movies. I wanted to see that, and living that and being part of that research and part of that documentary process was very exciting, to be able to be on the ground level of it and to see how it all worked out, and then just to tell an accurate story.
Yeah.
And once those came out, and the word stuff came through, and people really were liking it, it was just that extra boost, that extra push to really continue to tell an accurate story, and not have to sensationalize, not have to twist something to make it seem like it would be more entertaining. The truth is very entertaining,
Right.
more times than not, and it's been a lot of fun for sure.
That's what I love, man. The history. That's just that. It's so important. It's so crucial to what we do.
Well, this is an unwritten question, but you kind of made me, and you, of course, no names, obviously, but do you feel like today, with the major entertainment realm that we have, like Discovery Plus, for example, they have so many different paranormal, from Bigfoot to Ghost Adventurers and all that. Do you think there might be people who still are embellishing and maybe making up things for entertainment in the paranormal field? And do you think that affects it negatively?
90% of them, maybe more.
Okay.
I saw a press release come through the other day from Discovery Plus, demons in the White House or some bullshit like that.
What?
No, I'm
See
serious.
what I'm saying? Demons.
I'm
Everybody's
serious.
like jumping on that D word.
It's like, guys, like, there is a very specific history with spiritualism in the White House that's very factual and very entertaining. You don't have to make it about demons. Like, it gets to a point where it's oversaturated. Yeah, that phenomenon may exist to some extent. Very, very rare, very rare.
Yeah.
But it's just, you see this dominant overtone of movies like the Conjuring films, or certain Paranormal Activity, those type of movies that
Right.
have dominated the pop
Paranormal
culture
Activity.
aspect. Yeah, that have dominated the pop culture aspect of this so much that has now influenced the TV side of it, to the point where factual research has been ripped up and thrown out the window, man. And it's sad, and a lot of times people, I get kind of a bad rap for being honest about certain things when it comes to the entertainment side of stuff. I've had a lot of people on other shows publicly come after me for just being honest about things, and I'm not purposely saying I know more than someone else or anything like that. That's definitely not the case. I'm just saying that I've seen behind that curtain, and behind that curtain is ugly, and
Yes.
and it's sad to see that people have to, or their thought process is they think they have to fool people into making something entertaining, when that's not the case. People want the truth,
Yep.
So it's kind of like never meet your heroes type of deal.
Yeah, right.
That's what that reminded me of, because as a fan, I'm always wondering, because I have been on paranormal investigations and I see things. I'm just going to use the number one thing that's on my computer, on my TV screen right now, is Ghost Adventurers. And Zach Bang is a damn, like, I've always wondered, you had 2 episodes with those guys, so I'm not specifically asking you, but in my own head, I ask, how much of that is a lot, because Zach has a lot of feelings and he has a lot of dude bros going on, and how much of that is true and how much of that is just show for the camera.
No.
Because there's a stark difference between them and ghost hunters, and even kindred spirits, and there's a sense of seriousness with ghost hunters. I get more of a entertaining, joking type of feel from Ghost Adventures sometimes. I'm not knocking Zach, because he's done a lot for the paranormal field. I'm just saying, I'm just speaking out loud right now. I think is thinking out loud because you tied into that. What I find impressive, what's the internet saying is true, is that you picked up a camera in 2010 and kind of self-taught yourself. So we're 11 years later, and you have an incredible, 100% incredible, for 11 years of doing this resume. That blows me away. I've been doing, paranormal stuff longer than that. And so is Ricky. I'm not saying you haven't, but it looks like you almost kind of took it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh yeah, no. I started actively investigating the field in 2006, but I didn't start trying to portray that type of content in a visual format until 2010, and that kind of transformed everything for me. And again, I didn't put the research into that type of visual format to be somebody, to be famous or anything of that nature. I thought it was the easiest way to put that information in a compelling way to have people consume that information, right? So it's an easier way, instead of dumping a bunch of data onto people and saying, hey, take a look at this and put it together yourselves, I think it's a lot easier to portray that from a visual standpoint. And I think that's been, it's been a lot of fun for me. I've enjoyed it very much. And I think it's reached a lot more people in that regard.
Right. So I think one of the most interesting things, even though you have been, certain TV shows about you, is the American Paranormal Research Association. That is something, hats off to you. That is where we move forward, as a field. When you think of things like MUFON, for example, how would you compare the two? Because I want people to know exactly what this association is. And MUFON is the best thing I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great model. You know what I mean? MUFON is a perfect model for what I one day want the American Paranormal Research Association to become. And I've actually, over the last couple of years, have been debating about opening chapters similar to how MUFON does as well. It would be a very extreme vetting process because of some of the unfortunate state that we're in with the field. There's a lot of people out there that wouldn't, in my opinion, meet that criteria to conduct the research properly. But MUFON's a perfect example of what I would love to see APRA become in the future. And that's something I've been looking at and something I've been debating with myself for many years. And MUFON's a great example, right on the money with that.
Yeah, they're reputable. And to get a UFO group reputable, or UAP group as we know it now, reputable is a big thing. And really, like I was saying earlier, we have a lot of entertainment and a lot of joking and a lot of non-seriousness when it comes to paranormal. For example, I was watching just the other day, I'll name the show Paranormal Caught on Tape or Caught on Video, and I don't even think they vet those videos because I've seen some of them on my own phone, just complete CGI, or like I was telling you, that one guy just pops up with a mask on and they're like, "This is a ghost." I'm like, "It's totally not."
Yeah.
How do you think that makes people feel when they see that all the time and then they have their first true paranormal experience? Because it's usually out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. How do you think that makes people feel? Like, could that confuse people, maybe even hurt people's reaction to the paranormal, or even get more scared to the paranormal?
Yeah, I think it makes people that, maybe on the fence about belief or non-belief, and then they have that big experience and then they see something like that in media, and it's going to be a huge turnoff and conflict their own views and conflict their own experience that they had, because it's become such a mockery. There's people that take this very seriously. It's not like, oh, I take, my research very seriously. It's all about that. But everyone is in this field for a reason, whatever that reason may be, adrenaline rush, personal answers, whatever it may be. For me, it's because I lost a brother to cancer in 95 and I lost a brother to suicide in 04. So my big goal here is to find out if there is a life after death. Is it a possibility? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. Our body's made up of energy. We're firing off neurons right now as we speak to each other. Where does that energy go when we die, and does it retain consciousness? That's my big question, right? And the only way I can really find answers to that is by using the scientific method and finding data and empirical evidence that could be looked at and tested by third-party professionals and peer review. That's something, unfortunately, you don't see a lot in this field, and I hope it changes one day. Really, I really do.
I would love to see a ton of peer-reviewed stuff when it comes to the American Paranormal Research Association. That would be fantastic to see. To me, peer review is where the buck stops when it comes to scientific, back and forth. If you can get like 25 good scientists peer review an article that you or Mustafa or whoever writes, and say, you know what, that's a fact. Because it's not a secret. We use scientific devices to find the paranormal. Why can't we write an actual peer-reviewed statement on that? I just don't see very much of it. Trust me, I've dug and dug and dug. I can't find anything. So,
yeah.
So, speaking of data, what are your thoughts on this? To me, this is
that is, yeah. That to me, I call it the Swiss Army knife of the paranormal. You know what I mean? The difference between the EDI Plus and a lot of devices you see made for paranormal research is the fact that device is being used with different technology from different technical industries put into one, product that's giving you environmental data. It's not an Obelisk, it's not an SLS, it's not any of these goofy spirit boxes or anything like that are not giving you factual data. Everything you can record on the EDI Plus can be reviewed. It's giving you data points. It's giving you information from temperature to humidity, pressure, EMF, vibration. All of those things and those data points, which are recorded to an SD card, can be timestamped, can be looked at, and tell you what those exact environmental conditions are during your investigation. Those other devices that I mentioned, the garage tech that's out there that you see on all the shows, is not giving you empirical evidence or data. It's giving you false positives that are there to entertain you for purposes of trying to find ghosts. So the EDI Plus I endorse it completely. That's why I brought it on to Ghost Hunters, and that's why we used it so heavily. And it actually led to some amazing correlations with, factual data when we started to implement the EMCCD camera and seeing that photon events have something to do. Yeah, it had something to do with the mechanics behind what people believe to be ghosts. And once we started to see that there was a correlation between photon events in these locations and pressure changes, that's the type of information that needs to be looked at by various technical industries, and that's what we've done.
Yeah, I remember when you guys first used that on Ghost Hunters. That thing blew me away. That where y'all caught that thing literally walking. I was just like, holy cow. That's what we needed,
We're live. I have to do an adjustment. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
No worries.
Dog.
It happens. Amazon guy first.
Right. My dog, I'm surprised she hasn't clawed the door down yet. But that's where I found out about this was Ghost Hunters. So
great.
I appreciate you bringing that. This has been a lifesaver for me. And
I know it's great,
just
man.
Like you said, you can log everything with this versus using an SB7 or an SB11, that's scanning through the radio frequencies and stuff like
that.
No, that's
and again, like with the spirit box and whatnot. I mean, there's nothing wrong with using it. I mean, go out, use it, have fun. But I mean, if you were to take that information from a spirit box and take it to an audio engineer and say, hey, we think we have something that's paranormal, it could be a ghost, they're going to pull that into a spectrum analysis, and you're going to see it's all radio frequencies. Yep. That's not factual data. Maybe there's some stuff that can happen with it. It's very possible. But from a scientific point of view, from a pushing the field forward point of view, it's a flawed device.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if you answered this while I was getting up, but Ghost Adventures, for example, they have a guy named, they used to have a guy named Bill Chappell in there who's an actual engineer that came up with things for them. On the show Ghost Hunters, do you guys have that same kind of thing? I know they have somebody new now, so we'll skip. I don't know that guy's name, but I'm saying, do you guys have the same thing there, or are you interested in doing that kind of stuff?
The best way I would put this is that we have to use devices from various technical industries that are used to find empirical evidence and data, right? It should not be designed to find ghosts. If it is designed to find ghosts, I'm not going to use it because it's going to flaw the process. I want devices that can be tested. I want devices that give us information that can be peer reviewed. I want devices that can give us data that can be explained or tell us that it's something they can explain. That's the only way we're going to step out of that shadow of pseudoscience. If someone creates a device such as the EDI Plus that is using this technology from those various fields and putting it together in one device to go out and use within paranormal research, great, I will use it because it's giving me data. But for instance, an Obelisk, Spirit Box, an SLS camera, none of that's giving us information. It may reaffirm or confirm our beliefs or people that want to find ghosts. That may make you feel better about the situation. But if that was to be looked at by a third party from a technical industry, they would be like, I'm going to tell you right now, this is A, B, and C, why this is happening.
Yeah, I'd really love to see a guy like you on like Skinwalker Ranch, not the show, but the actual place, to give some. They have a scientist now, of course, that's on that particular ranch. It's all TV for History Channel, but still, I would. That's a place I'd love to see you guys. Just saying, if you ever get the hankering, give them a call. I'd love to see you on there. I'd pay for that one. And it's just because I like to see things scientifically broken down myself. Cold hard facts, like it's been quoted about you, is a big thing for me. Ricky and I met during a time where we were investigating, and it's actually the last night. I did not investigate anymore after that. I have not. That was 2018. I lost 2 brothers then, just like you. That actually made me stop. But anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because, that night there was lots of things that it took me years to actually comprehend that may have actually been paranormal, because I was back and forth with it a lot. And to have better devices, we had an SB11 back then. We had a K2 meters and stuff, but I really do wish Ricky, how awesome that would have been to have.
Had this, the EDI
Exactly.
Plus,
The
something
EDI Plus.
That.
Yeah.
Especially when that cage moved. Like,
right.
I'm sure we would have got pressure, all sorts of hits.
And Brandon, in our first episode, we talked about this jail that we were in. We were inside of a cage that weighed about 15,000 pounds. It was picked up and moved, the entire thing.
Whoa.
Like dude, it was like out of a movie. It's like somebody
right.
threw a hand grenade, the vibrations. Boom.
Wow.
And we're just sitting here like, how?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where really that was the end of my investigation, which I told you guys I'll come back out of retirement if we get enough subscribers. I need 200 subscribers. I'll come back to an investigation. I'm just one of those guys, skeptic by nature, and it's simply because I don't think that paranormal for entertainment does anything for anybody except for entertainment. Mm-hmm. I think it hurts people, and I'd really love to hear. Do you think there'll ever be a time when all of these shows and all these top people like Zach Bagans and even Aaron? I like Billy Tolley because he seems pretty technical too. He's a skeptic. Do you think there'll ever be a time when they all can get together and make their own collaboration, something like the Paranormal Association, the Paranormal Research Association? Do you think there'll ever be a time that'll ever happen, or do you think we're kind of separated in the field with a bunch of egos?
Yeah, I think it's an ego war. It's a money war. It's a ratings war. Yep. I can't speak for those guys. I know those guys. I've met them. I've been on the shows with them. I love Zach. I think he's a fucking brilliant businessman. He's a modern P.T. Barnum. He's a modern P.T. Barnum. Some people might take that negatively, but P.T. Barnum was a brilliant man. I don't think they take what they do seriously. I really don't. It goes for every show that's out there. I'm being honest about that. Again, it's just my opinion. It's just what I think. I've had the peek behind the curtain. I don't think that they take what they do seriously. I really don't.
Well, there's some direct questions that I wanted to ask you. You just answered that. I'm not going to directly ask you what I really want to ask about certain people, but thank you for answering that because that's actually one of the more direct things I wanted to ask, and not just for myself because I am a fan, but for anybody that's watching. Even George in our comments here, he's actually been with Ghost Adventures as well.
George, what's up?
Yeah, so he's been there, and I've actually looked up his history and seen his episodes. I've seen your episodes, went back and watched them. So even on Ghost Hunters, which you guys show up on Vice a lot now.
I've been hearing that, which is cool, man. Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah. That was a plug that I don't get.
I loved what y'all did with the show, man, because that's exactly what we needed, and especially the passion you and Mustafa brought too. The whole team. I mean, y'all were zoned in, wanting to get down to the nitty gritty, not focus on there's rumors of a demon hiding in my corner of the basement down there.
Yeah,
right.
Y'all were looking, for real interaction, not some hyped up, what you see on a lot of the Travel Channel stuff now.
Yeah, it's a very specific model they have now. They think it's successful, so they're going to probably continue to do that. But I think that there's a growing number of people that are really tired of the run-of-the-mill programming that you're seeing. I mean, people love educational programming. I mean, who doesn't love a good documentary? Who doesn't love learning something? So I think that in due time, coming probably the next couple of years or so, you're going to see a different angle and a different light of this genre that's going to take it more to the educational side, and that's just as entertaining, if not more entertaining, in my opinion.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, the real, not the little hyped fake. You can, it's gotten to the point now where you can just, even somebody that doesn't edit and do stuff like that, you can see where stuff's actually been put in and hyped up.
Yep.
Well, if I wanted entertainment, I'm going to watch Rick and Morty. I'm not going to watch, something that I'm passionate about. But I guess that kind of makes me want to ask you this as well, Brandon. How would you feel about maybe possibly in the future doing your own show with maybe Mufasa or a group of people that you trust that focuses on the scientific, not pseudoscience, but the scientific approach to the paranormal? I know some people might find that incredibly boring, but I'm just asking. I myself would be so interested in that. I'd pay for that. I'd pay for the app. So
yeah.
How do you feel about that?
That's already happening. It's in the process. So can't
Okay,
say
stay
much more
tuned.
than that. But stay tuned. It's in the process. So
Stay tuned. And that kind of leads me to my last question that I have wrote down. Tube filter on the internet says Alice has a knack for turning the small, little noticed tidbits of the past into the sharp, compelling content of the present. Do you feel that you've accomplished that with your work, and where do you see yourself moving forward from here in the future?
well, that's very nice of them to say. First and foremost, that's cool. Uh, yeah, I think that that's one of my strong suits is the fact that I can look at very small details in a situation, be that historically or in an investigation, where maybe it's something that's overlooked a majority of the time that
Yeah.
is a huge piece of the puzzle. You know what I mean? And those little bits of information like that always lead to a bigger picture. And I think a lot of times that people just want to jump to that conclusion and jump to that bigger picture right away without doing the meticulous process of analyzing it and breaking it down. And I think that you can see within the current climate of paranormal research as well as the entertainment side of it is that detail is missing. So
Yeah. Is there something in the paranormal field that just absolutely scares the shit out of you? I mean, what I mean is just like, is there something you just don't want to touch? Because I found that after I had my losses, there were things that I just wouldn't come around anymore. You seem like you took it the opposite way that I did, and it opened you up more to the paranormal. Can you kind of maybe further into that?
yeah, when it comes to the possible existence of life after death, I'm looking for answers in any way I can. So nothing really scares me in that regard, but alien abduction scares the living shit out of me. So that's why I don't mess with any of that stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm of the thought process that we would be, yeah, exactly. We would be ignorant to think that we're the only life in the universe, and that's
Right.
why I'm like, yeah, I'm good, man. I've seen
Y'all
Fire
do
in the Sky too
y'all,
many
I'll do
times.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Fire in the Sky scared the shit out of me. I have a poster over here signed by Travis Walton on my wall. Yeah, I'll leave that to those guys for sure.
Yeah. Well, I hope by quoting some of these quotes today that I kind of paint a picture to our audience who don't know who Brandon is about what kind of person you are. And if I portrayed you inaccurately, call me out. But that's
No,
just the research I've done for you in doing this interview and for your book. I'm excited about the book. I've already asked my wife, please get it so we can read it. She'll read it in a day. It'll take me a week because it's like I was dropped on the head as a kid.
It's just a genetic thing, bro. It's okay. No.
Yeah.
Some of us are a little slow. No.
But that also brings up another interesting point. I'm a religious guy, so I'm a Christian guy. What you say is not going to offend me. No, I'm not one of those kind of Christians.
Mhm.
But how do you feel? I don't know I'm not asking what your religious background is, but how does the paranormal field affect your belief about a higher being?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a higher power of some kind. Call it the universe, call it God, whatever you want. You know what I mean? But some of the most brilliant scientists in human history, Isaac Newton, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, all believe that science and religion went hand in hand. That's something you don't see a lot. I mean, Isaac Newton was so into that to the point that he tried to decode the Bible through mathematics, which is a very interesting thing. If you guys get a chance, look up Bible decoded Isaac Newton; it'll blow your mind. But there's something to it. There's a common correlation between science and religion that's not as far apart as people think it is, in my opinion. So I definitely think there's something to it for sure.
Do you think that cracking the paranormal, which we're not going to see it for another 100 years or so, but actually cracking the answers to the paranormal will crack the answers to what we know as religion?
I think so. Yeah, and I think that again, there's a lot of times people see this huge division between religions themselves, also science. I think they're a lot closer than people realize, all of it. So I think that at the end of the day, if there is a way to possibly prove the existence of life after death, I think it's going to bring humanity together in a way people don't realize.
I was just fixing to say that would be world peace if we did something like that. So that's how important the paranormal field is. Just paint that picture for you guys. I know we just made a huge stark jump there, but I'm saying that this is what the paranormal field could potentially do for the world, is that it can go the other way as well, depending on who's in it for money and who's not.
Right.
But my hat's off to you for writing this book. My hat's off to you for your work and all your other documentaries as well. I know I brought up your 2017 one, but if there's any other ones that you want to talk about, you're certainly open to talk about those.
Yeah, 2019, I released a film called Cemetery Park that took a couple years to complete. But that was a tough project, man. That was a project about government corruption in the town of Ventura, California, where they illegally demolished a 7-acre pioneer cemetery. We're talking immigrants from all around the world, veterans, founders of this country, founders of this state, founders of this community. And it was all a huge money and power grab that was done completely illegally by the city of Ventura, California. And I basically made an expose documentary about the film, following the journey of one man, Stephen Schlater, who was fighting against this injustice that took place in the 50s, in the 60s. It kind of chronicles that fight against the city and the loss of something so sacred to many people, and that's the grave of their loved ones. And it's just an amazing film. If you get a chance, just go to cemeteryparkfilm.com and you can watch the film for free. I released it for free. And if you're a history buff, you're going to love it. If you're into the paranormal, you're going to love it. If you're about political justice, you're going to love it. It's just true crime, whatever. It's got it all. And that was a very difficult project. And I finished that in 2019 and got into one of the biggest film festivals in the world, the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and made his debut there on the big screen, the silver screen. So that was a tough project, man. And that's the kind of stuff I like to dig into, is to really find those nitty gritty details about past events that really hasn't been brought to light. And that's something I love to do.
Yeah. So, you're making a documentary like that about those subjects. Did you feel like somebody's coming after you? Did you get attacked? I have to know these things because, everybody's going to be asking that now.
There were a few times I was told by people to check my brakes before I drove my car. But this particular story, man, Steve Schlater, who was the central character in the film, who fought the city for many years. It went to a grand jury. This is some serious criminal shit, man. A grand jury investigation. If you watch the film, what's really cool is I show a lot of courtroom footage and I show a lot of city council footage. I show the side of some of the family members that lost their loved ones' graves. I show the side of a man fighting to restore the cemetery. I show the side of one of the city council members that decided to keep this cemetery as a dog park.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, it was a rough one, man. There was a point where I got into talking to a family member, a descendant of one of the people buried there from a prominent family in Ventura. And he was willing to come on camera and talk to me and be part of it. And so I was, texting back and forth, trying to set up those interviews. And all of a sudden he shuts down on me and tells me that he can't speak to me anymore. I asked him, just simple, okay, that's not a problem, but why is that? He said, well, I'm running for city council, so I can't talk about this anymore. So I said, well, who's telling you not to say that? And you'll see it's actually in the film. I actually show the text messages, but he says that his campaign manager and other people on the city council said it wasn't favorable. Well, the guy didn't make the election or didn't win the election anyway, so his loss.
Yeah.
You said that was like one of your toughest projects, and it does sound like it may be. Moving away from your projects, besides the paranormal, because I know sometimes when you're in this field that you love, it can actually become work, and nobody likes work. So besides the paranormal, is there something else that you might be passionate about? And history, obviously, but anything
I'm a filmmaker, man. I'm a filmmaker. It's no genre is the limit. You know what I mean? I will do it all. So, I just love to tell stories and tell them in a visual way. That's what I love to do. Filmmaking. That's it. I eat, sleep, and breathe it. So.
Also, feel free to plug your new project that you just released on your YouTube.
Yeah, I'm going to be releasing some content on YouTube. You can check that out at youtube.com/APRA Paranormal. I'm going to do it all through the APRA YouTube page. I'm just releasing some old case logs, stuff that I haven't released to the public over the years, where I kind of am now releasing that information to the public and breaking it down in a way that is to me, very interesting. And I just want to, show that research, 17 years worth of stuff that I have, and some stuff that's been peer reviewed over the years, taken a look at by, professionals from various technical industries that has yet to be explained or yet to be explained. So I'm kind of putting that information out now and going to do that through YouTube, and also going to have some behind the scenes stuff with Mustafa about a new project we're doing here pretty soon. So
yeah, I'm pumped to hear that. I'm also a fan of Formula of a Haunting, man. I love what you're doing with that. I'm glued to it. You know, it's just,
Thanks, man.
Dude's so good at putting everything together.
Man, just your passion for everything that you touch and it kind of shows what hard work, everything that you do. If you want it to be successful, hard work has to come behind it, and you're kind of like the shining example of that, especially in the paranormal field. So my hat's off to you for being different in the paranormal field. That's hard to do. That's really hard to do.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate. Hey, man, I'll say this. You know, I appreciate that. I'm not trying to be different. I'm not trying to be something that I'm not in any way, shape, or form. So that's a huge compliment. I appreciate that because I'm just being myself. And one thing with me that you're always going to get is I'm going to tell the truth. It doesn't make me popular, but I don't give a shit about popularity. It's not my concern. It's not why I'm doing this. I've had a lot of backlash from certain people about just being honest, and I'm just going to continue to be myself. And if that rubs people the wrong way, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to offend anyone.
Well, you've not come off disingenuous whatsoever. And I really meant it as a compliment to be different in the paranormal field. It's kind of like being different in, I don't know, the UFO field. Like, to me, Dr. Stephen Greer, he's different. People have bad things to say about him. They do, but find somebody who has a little bit of fame and tell me what's not bad about him. But that's kind of awesome. Like, I see me looking back on this interview one day thinking, man, I wish I'd have got that guy's number. So in the future, and what I'm saying is, like, if you keep that hard work up, there's no way that you're going to go unnoticed. So really, my hat's off to you for that. I wish I had more to say about how awesome it is to have you here with us tonight, but also to be able to ask you these questions. Because trust me, I was thinking all day long, like, man, some of these questions are deep. Maybe he's probably going to think I'm a freaking weirdo. I'm just an internet guy. I do my research before I like to talk to somebody. Thanks for coming on and being genuine with us, and also being truthful. Truth always will set you free. And also, really, by being that way, I believe when you are doing your own projects, nobody's going to ask you those questions like, hey, so was that fake? I don't think you'll ever have that come on your corner because you don't even breathe that. It's not even coming off of you right now. So I
appreciate that, man.
Yeah. I'm long-winded on my questions. I'm sorry, but I have to get it out,
no worries. No, you guys are great, man. It's a pleasure sitting here talking to you guys. Love it.
Too, that have a question for you if you got time.
Yeah.
Since we're on about 45 minutes of being on air, so I think it's since I'm out of questions, Ricky, do you have any more?
Yeah, I got a few. We'll start off with the one question I want to ask. So, when it comes to investigating, how important to you is it to return to the same location and investigate it numerous times versus going to a location? You know how people pay $1,500 for Waverly for one night and once a year.
It's not quantity; it's quality, first and foremost. If we're ever going to have an understanding of the mechanics behind what we perceive to be ghosts and hauntings, we need to have an understanding of every environmental condition seasonally with a location. I've been investigating some locations for 10 years.
Wow.
McConaughey Estate's a perfect example of that. I've been investigating that location since 2009. And it's an ever-evolving type of phenomena. It's not about the biggest and best locations. It's about the phenomena. It's about understanding. Hey, it's a win if you go to a location and don't document any phenomena, because guess what? You learn something.
Right.
And you know exactly what the environment is of a location that's not haunted versus a location that you go to and collect data and empirical evidence that says it is haunted. So it's about quality, not quantity. It's not about the big names. It's not about making a YouTube video to say, hey, I was at Waverly or I was at Bobby Mackey's or whatever the hell it may be. It's about fundamental research, and that should be what's important.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Thank you.
Yeah.
Question from George Shoplin. He says, Brandon, picture yourself sitting high on a mountain and overlooking the paranormal field. What would you say is missing today in the field to make it better than ever?
Logic and critical thinking. It's at such a miss. I'll say this, I do my best to stay up to date on everything that's going on in the paranormal field. I'm always watching. It's not about, what other guys are doing or women, guys or gals are doing on the TV aspect. I like to look at what everyday researchers are doing, because guess what? We're no different than any researcher. Just because you're on TV doesn't make you better than someone else in any way, shape, or form. I saw a video, man, this guy made exposing this paranormal group. I'm not going to say their name. I don't remember. But they were outright faking stuff. I mean, to the point where they were like overacting, acting like they were getting pushed over, throwing themselves out of chairs, all kinds of stuff, man. And I love to see that, you know, and some people would think it might be like a negative thing for this guy to say, hey, look, they're faking it. But I mean, I think that's just being honest and truthful, you know?
You know, and you get people that are doing that, making us look bad for trying to, you know, we're trying to get to the bottom of the history, the truth behind what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. And go ahead, man.
I was just agreeing. That's all. I was just saying, yeah. Like I'm
yeah. For a second. You got that
I know. I was like, the feed's down, man. Yeah, no, it's just.
Sorry.
It's crazy though to see
Brandon, what do you think it will take in this field to provide significantly enough evidence for science to recognize life after death as as like a scientific fact?
Scientific fact. Well, I mean, the starting point we have to be at right now is collecting data, right? Empirical evidence. I use those words a lot. Sorry, my screen just went out there. I use those words a lot, but it's yeah, exactly. But it's exactly what we have to do. We have to provide data points, right? Yeah. You can't just show up and be like, hey, this is what my obelisk said, or this is what my SLS spirit box said. You have to know all environmental changes and environmental conditions, just like a farmer's almanac. Same situation. You have to be able to have all that information from an investigation when things happen that you perceived or think to be paranormal, and have that information to show to a third party, to a technical expert, and say, hey, look, this was the pressure, this was the humidity, this was the temperature, this was the EMF, this is what was happening with this camera, this is what was being recorded on audio, what are the frequencies associated with that? We have to have all that information. And if we're not doing that from a methodology standpoint or from an ethical standpoint, we're never even going to get to that point of science even recognizing the possibility of life after death. So we have to start with the basic fundamentals. We have to start with those data points, and then hopefully one day we can get to the point where we have a collective, we have an understanding of those environmental conditions that can be replicated. That's going to be the big step forward.
It's interesting you brought that up, because that would be your first step into a field like peer-reviewed things. Those are not going to happen without all those key points and elements that you just put. I didn't say elements to plug your book or anything, but elements that you just put together, data. And that's actually really interesting you said that. Kind of like barometric pressure changes, humidity, things of that nature. Mm. Glenn says, Brandon, what was the scariest thing that happened to you during an investigation?
Oh, man. Paranormal related, not really much has freaked me out. But I will say there's been some times where we've been in certain places investigating, and the people there are pretty scary. So I'm far more afraid of the living than the dead.
Amen. So. That's what I preach too. The living are 10 times scarier than the dead. 100%.
The real demons of the paranormal. That's our first episode.
Exactly.
There you go.
People are more twisted than, oh man. But
projection's a huge thing too, man. Projection is such a huge thing with, the plague of that, what is in the paranormal field now of demonic and negative. You are going to receive the energy that you put out. So if you are coming in biased in an investigation the way these people are, and you're screaming demon, guess what? You're going to get a demon. And that's not because it's an actual demon. It's because it's the power of your own mind. Something we would call a pseudo haunting in our book.
That's one question I wanted to ask you. So, do you think, since we're constantly capable of putting our own energy out there, do you think we can create our own paranormal activity?
100%. It's a thought form manifestation. We talk about that in the book, actually, and it's under the classification of what we refer to as a pseudo haunting, a class 5 of the classification system. So,
yeah, I'm glad somebody else thinks the same way I do, because that's the thing I've noticed. You go to so many different locations, and people bring in the wrong history, for instance, and they start making it, like a crawler or something like that.
Yeah.
The negative energy you bring into the location.
Ricky, that brings up this is the purpose why we're here today podcasting. Okay, we came up with our first episode was called "Real Demons of the Paranormal." It wasn't about demons. It was about the people who lead these paranormal groups, lead you right off a cliff. It was about how they'll use people for let's just say it. I'll call them out, whatever. Sex, drugs, just
Attention.
fame, attention.
You know?
Heavy drinking.
Riding coattails of other people. You know, I
Yeah.
think way too much nowadays.
Ricky and I got caught up with a very disgusting individual, and shortly after that, like the week after that investigation, my second brother passed away. I'm not saying that's what caused it, but what we invited into our lives that they didn't help me at all when it came to that. And being around this specific person, everything y'all just said, I got chill bumps because of what you just said. Like, that's so true. People are the worst. I'm sorry. I can rant about that all day long. And I want to call them out by name. I'm not going to. That's not my nature. Karma gets them in the end, but you got to be really careful.
Through something right now, like me, I'm dealing with a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. But Amanda Kinley asked, why do you think that while investigating a location with the lights on, that 2 people witness a dark black shadow mass move out of a basement and it not get caught on film?
Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I'm not sure why it wouldn't get caught on film. I mean, if 2 people witness it, it's not going to be, a trick of the eye when it comes to like your peripheral vision. So if 2 people witness that, that's really interesting because it's, a correlation between the 2. But it's very possible. It depends on the type of camera. It depends on the technology that was being used. Sometimes there's certain technology that can capture it and certain technology that doesn't. Quality is everything with capturing phenomena. So it depends on the camera. Without knowing that, I couldn't be quite sure.
Yep. Someone needs your book. You can order it. Get on Amazon.
That's right.
Money. Get it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, man. I beforehand, I just don't know you. And Ricky's spoken to you before, and he's spoken highly of you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you are our first celebrity appearance here because it just kind of shows how the same personality that Ricky and I have. You're a human being. You have blood pumping through your veins. I think you're a father as well and a husband.
Yep.
If you want to talk about being a family man, like I'm a family guy myself, but how does that play into the paranormal? Like, are you afraid of bringing home an attachment to your kid or something? Or I'm not going to speak that to existence, but still.
Right. No, I'm not because I approach this logically and I'm safe in the way I go into an investigation. Not necessarily from a spiritual sense of like protection. I have my own way of doing that. It's all about belief, right? Everyone has their own belief. What they believe works for them. And but for me, I go into an investigation unbiased. I don't have a preconceived notion of what I'm about to deal with. And if I get into a hairy situation where I think that there could be something that could possibly attach or inflict, conflict in my life, I'm going to put myself out of that situation. I'm not going to poke the bear. I'm not going to do that. That's not why I'm involved in this field.
I'm the same way. People dog at me all the time. And that's something I preach. It's never go against your gut. If you feel threatened or harmed, it's okay. Walk away, come back later.
Exactly.
It's kind of like when I take my son fishing. If I go fishing at that same fishing hole 10 times and I don't catch a fish, there's no fish there. I'm moving on. Mm-hmm. It's that something has to prove to me that there's fish there for me to continue to keep coming back. Paranormal field is the same way. And if you're going there just, if I can blow up the fish in the water and make them float up to the water, that's provoking fish. That's provoking a lot of problems. It's the same way when you're talking about poking a demon in the chest or opening up doors. I think you've said this earlier, which led me into my rant. I apologize about that, but opening up that door is how you get an attachment, I believe. When you start going in there, I say, okay, so if you don't want to talk, I'll use Zach Vegas, for example. He is the king of this for shit for likes and shits and giggles. He'll say, oh, if your stupid spirits come in here now and talk to me, or why are you? Yeah, I see it all the time. Like, anger does not help you.
No.
Yeah, because you don't know what you're talking to.
Not just that, it's just the disrespect is on a level that you would not go into someone's house and speak to them that way. And if you do, you're just a piece of shit, first and foremost. But if we are looking at this field the way that, majority of people think is that this is a deceased person that's retained consciousness after death, you don't go speak to people like that. You don't talk to people like that. Where's the level of respect? Where's the genuine feel for a person's culture, their belief system, who they were, their family, the reason they died, what happened to all that? These are not trained monkeys. These are not people, or these are not entities or beings that are meant to speak to you on command. Why do you have such an ego that you think you can go into a place and command these people around? It makes no sense. And the ego is just so off the charts. It's just unbelievable to me. And it's such a slap in the face. And I think with a lot of these TV personalities that you see, they have booked, they were a person. They are a person. Excuse me. I'll rephrase that. They are a person. And who they were before they got on that camera is vastly different than who they are now, because they have become the TV character.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They've lost all humanity. It's sad.
So question. As far as like, say, like you were saying, they're not trained circus animals as far as the spirits go. So big location. It's kind of a theory I brought up in my head. A lot of people say now that they go to Waverly Hills, sometimes they'll get something, sometimes they don't. Do you think, I mean, this is just what I believe in, the intelligent spirits there get worn out? You know, they're having thousands of people coming in throughout the year, asking them nightly, asking them the same questions over and over again, treating them like they're puppets. Move this, shut the door, make this go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Disneyland of the dead, you know. It's actually in the book, and I keep referencing the book, not because I'm trying to plug it, but it's just like everything we're talking about here is relevant to it.
Plug it as much as you want, bro. Please do.
But we actually, one of the chapters in there is a chapter titled Paranormal Malpractice. And just like anyone, say a doctor, if you do something unethical and you do something that's intentional to harm a person, your medical license is pulled from you. There's certain owners of buildings throughout this country that have made such a spectacle out of the possible entities that are in these buildings that they should have that revoked from them. They should have that taken from them, because they've turned these people, you know, this history into a pure spectacle. That's just a circus. And to me, that's malpractice.
Yeah.
Well, not to quote our Secretary of the White House, but I want to circle back to something here. You were talking about going into a show, you're a different person afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this. The famous brick incident with Ghost Adventures at the Goldfield Hotel, that's what brought me into the paranormal. I was young then. I'm 33 years old. I'm not that old. I know I look like it. But anyway, that was astonishing. And back then, they were pulling in evidence that way. It's a completely different thing now. And I believe that a lot of people have ridden the coattails of them, and even TAPS, Ghost Hunters, rather. I'm not putting them in the same category at all, but what I'm saying is I think a lot of people kind of miss the point of what you just said. Once you get into this field, and even if you start making a big name of yourself, you can become a completely different person. That begs the question, did you, along the way, get changed by an entity that you offered to, jump on your back or something? It makes you want to ask that question, How does that affect people? How does that change people? How do spirits and demons and everything change people? And
it's a tough question. I don't know. I can't be quite sure, but all I know is that, talking about the paranormal entertainment side of it, I mean, it's very easy to go back and look at a show season 1 versus season 10, right? To see the change. They're not working as hard. They're not trying to find answers. They have this formula down where they can get through and squeak out a 42-minute episode by placating those talking points, right? And I think that, these people become these characters. Is that from a spiritual overtone? Possibly. Is it from just becoming this myth and this legend that's been created through television? Probably more likely than not.
And muscle memory of doing the same thing over and over again. You start to, just like you speed up learning a new task, you do it enough, you get faster, just like you said. The episodes that used to be longer become shorter, and
well, that does a disservice to us all, really, because we were talking about at the beginning of this show, it might take us another 100 years to even crack the first answer out of paranormal. They still have a duty and a responsibility, these big people who have the big names, to help us in the paranormal field. They still have that. Whether they want to believe it or not, they have a responsibility, because they're the only ones that can make things, important enough for us to do investigation to spend money on. The government's not going to put, they might put black money into it. What I mean is like black money that's not traced into the paranormal. But I mean, that's why the American Paranormal Research Association really, I'm going to be on that reading everything I can, everything that comes out of that for the rest of my ever, because that is the most amazing thing. I did the same thing with MUFON, and I still do. I hope you guys get bigger than that, because that's such an important thing. I know I rant. I don't know if I'm asking a question or ranting.
I mean, I'm a fan of it, so keep doing what y'all are doing.
I want to ask you a question though, and if you don't want to answer, just say screw you, bro. But what is your belief of the paranormal? What do you think a ghost is? Do you think that when somebody dies, they go to heaven or hell? They're stuck in the middle of purgatory. What's your belief on this?
Well, I mean, we were talking about religion earlier, right? And there's a lot of different ideologies and belief systems associated with afterlife and spirit, or whatever you want to call it. To look at it from like a Christian point of view, free will, right? Free will. It's a big part of Christianity. It's a big part of who we are, makes us different as individuals, as people. Just because you die, that free will doesn't go away, right? You should still, because you're not in flesh, if we do have a consciousness after death, you could still make that decision. And I think maybe there are people that choose to stay, that don't choose to move on for whatever reason. That may be tragic deaths, waiting for loved ones, whatever it may be. There's all kinds of different scenarios. But I think that there's a strong possibility that there is a consciousness retained after death, and it's up to that person to make those decisions.
That's extremely interesting, because that actually, even as from a Christian level, implies that you still have a choice after death. A lot of old school traditionalist Christians want to believe that when you pass away, it's up or down right then and there. And the Bible does say to be absent and from the bodies to be present with the Lord. I get that. But it also speaks that we're not in heaven yet or hell. We're in Abraham's bosom in Hades. It's kind of open until Judgment Day. That's my approach to it. But that's really interesting you said that, because it kind of does open you that up. Okay, so I do have a choice. I can stick around for my kids. They just don't know it. It kind of makes you wonder now, like, man, when you're texting on your phone and you're driving, which don't ever do that. But if you do, and you look up and you barely miss that car in front of you, was that your grandpa in the backseat telling you to look up? Right. You know what I mean? That's actually a really amazing thing that you brought up there. And I'll tell you, dude, I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. Man, your brain is one amazing one to pick. So that's really it. I've written down everything that I got, everything you talked about. It's more of an agnostic approach. It's what I feel from you. Mm-hmm. So you're not, you're kind of open to the thing of a higher power. And like you said, I'm going to look into the Isaac Newton Bible decoding, though. I'm really interested in that.
That's going to blow your mind, man. That's how
it too. That sounds badass.
That's how much of a believer he was in the Bible, in the Christian Bible. And you'll see, this is where it gets really crazy, is that he mathematically decodes scripture, and he predicted some things that actually happened. So it's pretty cool. Check it out. It's pretty cool.
Dope.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be looking at, seriously, when we're off of this, I'm going to be cleaning everything up and getting everything done. You take my whole set down, and then I'm going to lay down and watch that and all kind of stuff on that. I'm a Gaia fan. I like watching stuff like alternative stuff. I absolutely love Gaia. I'm not plugging. I'm just saying that's where you'll find, subjects like that. Eric Murphy says, in Christian faith, according to the Bible, the angels chose to fall from heaven. Free will, the greatest gift in life we still have after death of the physical body.
Exactly. Yeah. Eric said it right. And that's one thing you see. I mean, obviously there's different denominations and different beliefs within the religion itself, but logically, to me, I mean, I'm not a Christian per se, but from a logic standpoint, I mean, free will just doesn't go away because your physical body's dead. I think you still have, that's kind of the gift, the internal gift, right? So
right.
It's interesting.
That's why I think inmates are still hanging in these jails being little punks.
Well, I think that also may explain why a lot of people have fear of death, because they feel like their free will is going to be taken away. I'm going to be whisked away into this place that I don't want to be. Darkness. It's going to be darkness, which I believe some people have that waiting on them. I really do.
Sure.
Because I'm a believer of the Bible. I believe every single word of it. But, I also believe that we were all meant to read the Bible, interpret it in different ways. Mm-hmm. I've read the Quran as well. I mean, I've looked into all these ancient texts. The ancient Sumerians had a really, really, really close thing to Jesus, and they were talking 3,000 or 4,000 years before Jesus was even written about. So I'm not going to, that's who I believe in. That's my savior. But at the same time, the paranormal field tying into religion, again, is so – you're walking a fine line there, because you could, A, really piss people off. But B, if you start getting into the truth of the paranormal, people may feel like it steps on toes. For example, it's been like a conspiracy that the Pope and them and the Vatican know about UFOs, and they're not releasing it because they feel like they won't have any control of the Catholic Church anymore. Nowhere in the Bible does it say there's not extraterrestrials. It does not say that.
Right.
As a matter of fact, and when the paranormal comes around, I've quoted this last night on our podcast, but Jesus came across a man who was possessed by demons and called them out and cast them into pigs. That's why if you ever want to, I hear it all the time. I've heard it before. We are Legion. I've heard that on an investigation on an EVP before. That's a direct quote from that Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I'm getting at with this, but I'm just saying it's interesting when you start looking into those things. You don't necessarily have to throw your religion out the window to believe these things because God, it's not called for that.
Like I said earlier, I think that all world religions, science are a lot closer than people realize in thinking, and the higher power. Who knows? I mean, again, it's all a belief system, speculation for some, but I think they're a lot closer tied than people realize.
That's kind of like me. Like we were talking about a guy that I was with last night with the Bigfoot thing. He's an agnostic, and I think he might be closer to the truth than most Christians are. Just by the way we live our lives, we're not meant to just have to get up every week and go worship on a church on a Sunday and then move about our week like we never even worshipped on that Sunday. That's not religion. That's not even a relationship with anything to me. Something created this, though. I really believe that. If you just look at the way the human body's made up, you look at the spirits, all the things that people talked about, which leads me to my next question for you. After death experiences, like afterlife experiences, people die and come back. I've heard a lot of them. I've read a lot of them, and just about every one of them are different. How do you feel? Why do you feel that is? Do you think it's because of the way that person lived their life, or I'm not trying to lead you. I'm asking you.
Right, NDEs are an interesting thing. Near-death experiences are some that I've looked into many times. I think the most foremost authority on that is Dr. Raymond Moody. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's really done a lot of research in that wheelhouse. I think it's different. I think it's all about life experience. It's going to be different interpretations. From a medical point of view and a spiritual point of view, they can be interpreted differently. If you want to look at it from, people on the side of, it wasn't a spiritual experience per se, it was medical. But why would it be different for everyone? I don't know. But I think if anyone wants to look into NDEs and near-death experience and things of that, I think Dr. Raymond Moody is the guy, and his writings really are the best on that subject for sure.
Yeah, just to back up what you just said, some people may believe, like physical-wise, it was just a DMT dump of the brain, and because and you were just having this weird experience.
I had one myself as a child. And I can remember it vividly. I fell on my back, hit my head, and I saw a tunnel of white light.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, and I know, right? But it lasted a while, and I came back to consciousness, and I was fine. But I never knew what NDE or near death was until I got into the paranormal. And I'm like, okay, wow,
that's what that was.
I've had some weird experiences in my sleep. I've had night terrors is what they're called. I've had 7 of them in my lifetime. That's how important they are. That's how stark and terrifying they are. I can remember every single one of them. I've had 7. And every one of them, you wake up and like one time I woke up and I'm looking in my room in the middle of the night. My window's broken. My TV's on fire. It's sideways like there's people walking in my room. And then I snapped out of it because I was paralyzed and none of that was happening. But I thought it was real. That kind of, was that a near-death experience? Did I quit breathing in my sleep? I don't know. I just know that they're terrifying. Or did I just watch too much TV before I went to bed that night?
Right. Exactly.
So, how do you?
Out there. We just have to try to find it.
I'm a father to 2 young kids, Easton and Cora. They're watching, I'm pretty sure, or they will be. One's 7 and one's 9. How do you feel about bringing these topics up to your child as they get older? Do you feel like it's something you want him to learn on his own, et cetera, et cetera? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to know what I do, and he's going to know what I've done for the majority of my life. So if he wants to talk about it, fantastic. But if he has no interest, that's up to him. I want him to live his own path and live the life he wants to live. I would never want to project my own belief or project my own way of life onto him because it's not mine. It's his.
Yeah.
So it's up to him.
That's very noble of you as a father. It really is.
Much respect.
Yeah, because I'm a big football fan. I didn't want to put that on my son, but he became one because that's what Daddy watched every Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
And who knows? If you're doing all this research, one day your son could pick it up and move on, or one day he might just say, "Dad was full of shit."
Yeah,
Absolutely batshit crazy. So, man, we haven't talked too much about your family. I try to not do that, but if there's anything you want to say about being a father and husband, like. I'm thinking about my own wife, even when I do these podcasts. Like, what time are you going on your podcast? What time do I need to be out of that room? Do I need to keep the kids quiet? Do you ever have that from her or your wife?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially during, her and I both are working from home majority of the time because of, the pandemic and all that stuff and being locked away. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, she's amazingly supportive of what I do and loves it. She loves to be part of it. She's been on investigations with me and has been with me when I filmed some, big shows and big documentaries, and she just loves that process. So I'm very lucky.
But you just, the way you're describing, you seem like a pretty stand-up guy, dude. That's really awesome because that's kind of stuff that just a regular old Joe like me would do. I've missed my calling, I guess. I'm not really a claim to fame. I really like what we're doing here, me and Ricky. And while everybody's watching, let's break that down. Our podcast is about challenging the paranormal, what we know is paranormal. So we had a Bigfoot episode last night. I challenged and said, I don't think he's a mammal. I don't think it's a being. I think it's or a physical being. I think it's more of a shapeshifter. That was my thing. So that's what we're here for. Just so you know, that's the show that you're on. So, but leading with that, is there something that is, quote, well known in the paranormal field that you challenge that you don't think might be right?
Oh, majority of it, really. I don't even know where to start. There's so much misinformation and over sensationalizing things and just jumping the gun. It's hard. It's tough. I just wish that there was more logic and reasoning behind the research, which hopefully we'll get there. Hopefully.
Yeah. If you were to make your own show, would you see yourself more on a platform like Discovery Plus or Gaia?
Gaia, most likely.
All right.
To me, it's not really about platform. It's just about getting a product out there that I think will resonate with people. And I talking to you guys and talking to everyone else in the field, we're all on the same level. Just because someone's on TV doesn't make them any better than anyone else. I want to do the work that's going to resonate with people and not only find my own answers, but tell the truth. That's what's most important.
That's what we need, man. There's just like you said, and everybody can see it. There's so much false stuff that's making it on the entertainment screens now that just destroys our field.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we stand for and what we're really, out there doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I asked that question because Gaia is more of a fact-based show thing. They try to put as many facts out there. There's not too many. I'm sure there are shows where they're just blowing smoke up asses. But you don't find that at least the ones I watch are not like that.
Yeah.
When, Discovery Plus, I'm just naming them because they're the biggest app I can think of right now. They are more of a entertainment side. They have several different plug-in channels that come in and it's entertainment. It's interesting you said that because that paints a picture of what kind of investigator you are. And also, in order to have a show, I think you do have to be entertaining at some point, but that shows your stance on entertainment. That's entertaining to me, but I can watch anything history-wise. I mean, I will watch it. Like your Cemetery Park that you mentioned earlier, that's happening tonight as well. Like I'm going to be up late. If my boss is watching, I'll be late tomorrow. But yeah, this is awesome for you to be here. I hope dude, Ricky's one of the most genuine people that I know, and that's why we've gotten together and done this podcast. You're on episode 3, so this is the early part of our podcast. So this is what people will go back and watch all the time. Just know you're a part of that. You're the very first of that. And it's been an honor to have you. It's been an honor to have.
Couldn't have had a better guest, man.
I don't think so either. I really don't. That's what I was getting to say.
We're missing Mustafa too. We got to give Mustafa some credit.
You got to give Mustafa, man. You guys will love him. Yeah, him, Ricky. Ricky knows him.
He's badass. Yeah. That, like, when I met him, I was like, that's one of my most favorite human beings,
Yeah.
Mustafa's
that's another guy who will not bullshit.
We got to get y'all both on like the official Paranormal sometime when y'all had some free time.
Yeah, because we do live hangouts too outside of our podcast, but this is an actual podcast episode that's going to go into our archive. So, it's this, like I said, episode 3, you're here. This is going to be, I believe, the jumping point of everything. And Brandon, for you to be a part of this, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here tonight. And I mean, you could have been anywhere else. But you were here, and you took questions from this guy who you have no idea who I am. You just met me literally 10 minutes before the show. So
I appreciate it, man. No, it's you guys are doing a great job, and thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure, for sure.
Thanks for being here.
Yep. Ricky, or Brandon, if you don't mind, I think there's some other people that have some comments in the yeah, if we want to kind of touch on a few more of those, if you have some time, Brandon.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'll pull one up. It's actually from Amanda. She said, based on the camera that they were using, it was a body camera. Her and Corey both witnessed in a room with other people. Back to the show.
Wow.
So it was actually on a body camera.
Well, that's really interesting. I mean, those body cameras are very reliable. We use them in a lot of investigations, and they work well for us. So that's interesting. I'm not quite sure. That's adds more to the paranormal puzzle for sure.
Yeah. And also George, I'm looking through the comments here. George had asked a question earlier that you've already answered, but right after that, he followed it up when he said that he's in the field because he faced death because of cancer twice. He would rather use the energy to get better than to worry about what happened when we die. I have enough evidence to never fear death again, or other people that face death not to be afraid.
Yeah, I love that.
That man's a warrior. George.
I love George. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
I didn't want to skip what he was saying. We were in the thick of the interview when he said that. I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And anybody else, guys, this has been a busy episode, so we're not overlooking you.
So trying to make sure we got everybody. If you have like a minute or so, drop a question real quick. If you didn't get your question answered, and we'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah. Glenn Morgan is the number one fan that we have. I mean, he's been here. This guy here. He says, thanks, Brandon, for being on the lookout. Veteran thanks. Again, you're just a stand-up dude, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. I'm being serious. Like I've talked to a lot of assholes in my life. You're not one of them, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate that.
But no, it's the genuality, man. It's your, and not only just how you are, but your approach to the paranormal field has absolutely blown me away tonight. And I hope our audience sees this as well. And I hope maybe your audience who followed you here can also see that, this is how you are. And Mustafa.
Man, I appreciate the dive into the history part, because it's something that is so completely overlooked, but it's so crucial to what we do. It's important.
Yeah. And that kind of brings up one thing I wanted to ask you while we're waiting for our comments. I worked in the funeral home industry for 3 years. I do not believe funeral homes are haunted whatsoever. I don't know why they would be. I just don't believe that. And I'm pretty firm on that because I've been in them. When you work there, it's 24/7 operation. People don't choose when they die. Yeah. There was one time, though, when my grandfather had recently passed away, and I was going down to the chapel of this particular funeral home in the middle of the night to make sure the doors were closed. And I felt like somebody put their hand on my back. And I didn't even recognize it until later on I thought about it. Mm-hmm. I even asked the guy that I was with, and I was like, hey, were you down there? Did you tap me or something? He's like, no. But I remember that's what my grandpa did during my brother's funeral there. And but anyway, the reason why I bring that up, though, is there a place that a lot of people say are haunted that you just believe is not and doesn't have a reason to?
Oh man, there's a lot of places I've been that are notorious for being haunted that I didn't capture any evidence or data. Not every place is haunted, obviously. So majority of the time there's some bigger locations that have a following because of the TV shows and everyone's been there. But a lot of times they're not all they're cut out to be, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I just cut out a whole group of things there. Like you might have a haunted funeral home or whatever. I'm just saying, I just don't know how that would be happening based on the facts that I know about what the element of a haunting is, plug. I just don't see how in the world that would happen at a funeral home unless it's a shutdown funeral home and Satan worshipers came in and invited it in. I don't know. Right. It's more of a sacred place. Mm-hmm. It really is.
The Southern history, say the Civil War, there was heavy fighting in the area. Maybe it was turned into a funeral home, field hospital.
Yeah, mm-hmm. That's different.
That's how I could see it actually. What happened to the building before? A lot of people think, because it's a funeral home, it's going to be haunted because there's dead bodies. No, it goes back to the history. What happened at this location way before there was a building here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I did investigate a location called Payne and Sons Mortuary over a number of years in Bakersfield, California, that did have activity, but I think that was more associated with the family that lived, worked, and died in the house. I don't think it was to do with the operations of the building were the deceased that came through. So I mean, there was some tragedy that happened with the family. So
if this helps you along your way with research ever, I'm going to tell you, when you're working in the back of a funeral home, it's more of a sacred place. So the embalming room is a place where there's no jokes told. There's none of that going on. And directors know this. It's just a thing that they know they're there to do a job, and it's a job that not everybody wants to do, and it's more of a sacred thing. It's more sacred than go walking into a church to me, because it has that feeling to it. It's not heavy, but it's one of those things. It's a high level of respect. So I just don't see how, unless you're you have a situation like that, it would ever happen that way. I'm pretty sure some of those guys are watching this right now, and I hope I've done them justice by saying that. The biggest thing that I hate is hearing about funeral homes being broken into because somebody wanted to investigate them. That's just absolute garbage.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Which brings me
anywhere you go.
Right, and I know, Brandon, you're probably exactly, and you probably were young and dumb at one time. Did you ever? And I'm not to encourage it, because we never ever would encourage it here on this channel. But did you ever go to a place that you really shouldn't have been to investigate?
No.
In your younger years.
Nope.
Good. I
Never.
didn't take you to somebody who would. So
never. Every location I've ever experienced, ever investigated or had experiences at, I always got permission. That's a kind of a golden rule within the field, or should be at least.
Yes, it is. But I meant like me as a teenager or something. There's plenty of places. I've actually never truly done that. We always went to places that were public, like a haunted bridge that every town has or something like that.
Right.
That's where. But I'm more afraid of people than I am the ghosts.
And you have to be on the watch for people in some of these locations, 100%.
You certainly do.
Back when I started, we didn't know it was illegal to be in a cemetery past dark. The cops pulled up, and they were like, "What are y'all doing?" Did we explain to them? They're like, "Okay, we know y'all aren't doing anything wrong, but it's not allowed." We're like, "Oh, wow." That's the only time I've ever, I guess you consider it be...
That was in Georgia. Am I correct about that? Yeah, in Georgia, they will smoke your ass in the state of Georgia for that.
Yeah. But we didn't know, so they knew we weren't up to nothing. They explained to us, and ever since then, it's been the golden rule. No, we're not allowed to investigate. We'll see if we can. If they say no, it's no,
Yeah.
There's a reason they're saying no. It's not just to make you upset. There could be a lot of underlying reasons why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I guess one last thing before I'm going to wrap up my questions for you. I keep thinking of them because you're just, like I said, you're interesting. Your answers are just like, they keep giving me more answers or questions. Right here above my head, I have a picture of the moon because I love astrology. I have a telescope sitting right over there. That's where that picture of the moon came from.
Yeah.
Another big thing that I love to read about is like structures on Mars and structures on the moon indicating a past civilization. If that's the case, could there be hauntings on other planets? I mean, you know what I mean?
Ghosts.
Yeah.
Alien, yeah, it's possible. Absolutely. I mean, if there was civilizations on those planets, I mean, again, I would think that, we're ignorant to think that we're the only, existence in the universe. Yeah, of course. It's very possible. Alien ghosts. Sounds cool. Sounds like a new
I know
show.
Earlier you said that you were deathly afraid of, or you're actually terrified of an alien abduction, which I am too. But is that something you ever find you would ever find interest in investing some of your time and energy into? Would be maybe the UFO field? Do you think that ties into paranormal as well, or is that separate?
In the the general umbrella of paranormal, it all falls into it, right? Crypto, ufology, ghosts, hauntings, all of it. So yeah, I do know people that are involved with MUFON or involved in the UFO community. So I don't know if I would go there myself, but I do have conversations with them about it just to stay refreshed and have an understanding.
Right. So you're kind of a teammate to them. Para-unity. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Amanda says, what type of video camera do you think I could use to better document for the shadow figures that we see a big majority of the time on locations?
Ooh, it's tough. I mean, we've had results with everything from, body cams, like you were mentioning earlier, with infrared to standard UV cameras to thermal infrared cameras. It's tough. I mean, it's just kind of a right place at the right time kind of thing. So my advice would to be use as many of those pieces of technology as possible and just cover all your bases before you so in hopes to capture that for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. Thank you for the question, Amanda. It looks like Glenn might be topping off the comments at the very end here. He says, #1 Paranormal encounter, always great, Ricky and Tim live streams and shows. Thank you for that, Glenn. We really appreciate that, Glenn. That's all I have, Ricky. I mean, if I sat here long enough, I could probably keep you up till 3 o'clock in the morning.
We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, bro, to be here. So
I appreciate it. No, thanks, guys. It's awesome talking to you guys, and let's do it sometime soon. Let's get Mustafa involved too. That'd be awesome.
Yes, we gotta have him on here again. Yeah, you get to meet Mustafa finally, Tim.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Like, especially here with this, like, I'm more excited about that now than I am before this interview. I promise. So, and Brandon, if you want to stay on for after we go off, so we can kind of tidy up, would you?
All right, sounds good.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and as usual, stay tuned. More content coming soon, and have a great night, everybody.